Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. Case 1. Hannah Clark was born on September 8, 1988 in Brisbane, Australia, to parents Sue and Lloyd Clark. She was described as a bubbly, fun-loving, happy, and friendly girl who dreamt of having her own children one day, even at a young age. Hannah was a wonderful big sister to her brother. She represented the state in trampoline when she was just 16 years old and was a school captain during her senior year. For those here in the States, a school captain is a student who represents the student body and serves as a role model for the whole school. When Hannah finished school, she started teaching youth gymnastics at the Police Citizens Youth Club, or PCYC. She also worked as a teacher in vacation care. It was at the PCYC that 20-year-old Hannah met 31-year-old Rowan Baxter. Rowan Baxter was born on May 9, 1977, in Taranaki City, New Zealand. His childhood was described as chaotic, and his father went to prison when he was young for essay of a minor. It's been alleged, but not confirmed, that the minor was Rowan's sister. While not much is known about Rowan's history, one of his cousins stated that he was an angry child and had a history of showing cruelty to others. According to another cousin, she was terrified of Rowan, and his misogynist ways was a family trait that he inherited. Rowan played rugby at Taranaki Boys College and went on to be contracted to the New Zealand Warriors National Rugby League team in 2005. He was paid $10,000 a year, but he never played a game while part of the team. Rugby was a family sport, and his brother Charles played professionally for the Bay of Plenty Steamers for 5 years. Even though Rowan never actually played a game, he would always refer to himself as an ex-National Rugby League player, both in his future professions and also when he met people. Rowan's friends and co-workers didn't have the best things to say about him either. They described him as controlling and driven. He did not like to be told no. They said he always had to be the alpha male, and that he was very confrontational. Rowan was extremely competitive, including with his clients, and he always had to win. He would lie when it suited him. He made all decisions and ignored the advice of others. Rowan was suspicious in nature and always painted himself as the victim. He was short-tempered, and he was known to pretend to cry in order to garner sympathy from people. Only a couple of people had nice things to say about Rowan, that he was a loyal friend that would help out when needed, and that he was a good father to his kids. Rowan was married before he met Hannah and had a young son. Una's first wife met when he was 18, and she was 16. By the time their son was 2 years old, she wanted a divorce due to Rowan's controlling behavior and anger issues. However, Rowan wouldn't let her leave and took to stalking her. Rowan then told his estranged wife that he had a hose pipe in his car, and he had planned how he was going to end it for all three of them. Sadly, she decided to go back to this relationship. In 2008, Hannah was teaching at the PCYC in Carindale, a suburb of Brisbane, when Rowan's son attended her class. It was there that the two met, and even though he was still married, he began an affair with Hannah. At the time, Rowan had told Hannah that he and his wife had separated, but were living together for their son. About 4 months into the affair, he decided to break up with his wife. He moved out of the family home, agreeing to a co-parenting plan. However, Rowan would still get aggressive with his ex, threatening to beat her door down if there was a conflict in the parenting plan. Hannah became pregnant about 6 months into the relationship, and even though she wanted to keep the baby, Rowan convinced her to terminate it due to her young age. Over the next 4 years, Hannah and Rowan moved in together, moving a couple of times before settling in Mansfield. In October of 2012, Rowan and Hannah were married, and at the time, she was 14 weeks pregnant with their daughter. Rowan also stopped paying child support for his son after he had his first child with Hannah. Aaliyah Baxter was born on April 10, 2013. She was described as a sweet, articulate, clever girl who was excelling at school. She loved reading in English class. She was a brave girl who stood up to her father's violent behavior. She had seen the way that Rowan had treated her mother, and she didn't like it. In January of 2015, Hannah and Rowan, who were both very fitness-focused, decided to open a gym that they called Integrate Gym. Even though Hannah's parents and another investor paid to open the gym, it ultimately failed. Hannah's parents often paid their rent and bills to keep the family afloat. Around the same time that the gym opened, the couple had their second child, Leanna, and then 18 months later, their final child, Trey. Leanna Baxter was born on March 19, 2015, and was a sweet girl by nature. She was the peacekeeper who would try to make sure everyone was happy around her. She was described as a miniature version of her mother. If her father was angry, she would sit in his lap and try to calm him down. Trey Baxter was born on December 4, 2016, and was a mom's boy through and through. He loved running and playing, and loved nothing more than to be with his mother. Over time, Rowan's behavior with Hannah became progressively more controlling and aggressive. Early in the relationship, Hannah had gone on a cruise, and she expressed concern to her mother that Rowan wasn't happy with her going away. He contacted her excessively during this whole trip. Rowan then started to control what she wore, forbidding her to wear shorts, short skirts, or the color pink. Keep in mind, this is in Brisbane, Australia, where it is often hot. Therefore, wearing shorts and or skirts is not uncommon to do there. According to folks that we know in Australia, it is not uncommon to see people wearing much less than that in public, and it's not really frowned upon. So for someone to not be wearing shorts or skirts above the knees is somewhat unusual, especially those who work in the fitness industry. Rowan started to control other aspects of Hannah's life. They had a joint Facebook page, as Rowan didn't want her to have her own. Before opening their own gym, he got a job at the same place as Hannah, presumably to keep an eye on her. He started to isolate Hannah from her family, and this is a family that was very much tight-knit at one point. Rowan not only criticized Hannah's family, he would also control the amount of time that Hannah and the kids could visit. His criticism and controlling behavior didn't stop with Hannah either. If the kids didn't clean their toys up quickly enough, he would throw the toys in the trash. He would often cancel events the kids were looking forward to in order to punish Hannah. Allegedly, Rowan also planted devices in the house and inside Hannah's car so that he could record and listen to what she was saying. This was never proven, however, and in one instance, he overheard a conversation that happened in their car between Hannah and an employee at the gym. The employee criticized Rowan for taking over a gym class that Hannah was running. Rowan was enraged at this conversation. He claimed Aaliyah had been playing with the phone and accidentally called him, so he overheard the conversation. But while this is possible, it wasn't the only time this happened. After an argument, Rowan left the house with the kids, and Hannah, who was upset, called her mother. Rowan later knew every word that was said in that conversation and held it against Hannah. He told a coworker that it was an accident and that he left the phone on record after the coworker told him he shouldn't be recording Hannah without her knowledge. While it's unknown exactly how much physical violence happened in the house, a few friends and family reported seeing bruises on Hannah. At one point, she had a fingerprint bruise on her arm after an argument. Hannah wanted to take Aaliyah with her to a fitness competition, and Rowan disagreed. After going through Hannah's phone one evening, he threw it across the room and smashed it after he didn't like what he saw. Rowan would also demand that Hannah sleep with him on a daily basis. If Hannah didn't comply, he would start an argument. Now, on one occasion, he smashed her watch in anger and then left the house and took the same hose that he threatened his ex-wife with. A terrified Hannah called her mother. Worried he was going to shove the hose in his exhaust, Hannah's parents drove around Brisbane looking for him. He later came home and said he had driven to a church parking lot and attempted to do so. Eventually, Hannah had enough, and in November of 2019, she reached out to a family violence resource center and told them she wanted to leave her husband, but she didn't know how to do it safely. Now, as we mentioned previously, she believed Rowan was monitoring her. Together, they made an exit plan. In December of 2019, Hannah put the plan into action, fleeing her home with little possessions. She picked up Aaliyah from school and fled to her best friend's house. She left her phone in the car, which they hid in case Rowan was tracking them. The next day, they went to her parents' house. On December 4th, Rowan contacted Relationships Australia. According to their website, Relationships Australia is a leading provider of relationship support services for individuals, families, and communities. They aim to support all people in Australia to achieve positive and respectful relationships. The organization offered Rowan a session on December 10th, but he never confirmed or attended this appointment. On December 14th, Rowan went to his doctor and told him that Hannah and the kids had moved out. He confessed that he had control issues which were getting worse. He was in tears and indicated that he regretted his behavior. Rowan mentioned he had a bad upbringing but was close to his mother and that he had cut a lot of people out of his life. He went back on the 16th for a mental health visit and was prescribed temazepam, but no further follow-up was ever done, and he was and this was the last contact he had with his doctor. According to a clinical pharmacist we consulted, temazepam is normally prescribed for insomnia. Now, Rowan presented with anxiety, and it's quite possible he was dealing with insomnia at the same time, so theoretically possible he was prescribed temazepam because of this. Now on December 6th, Hannah went to the police, and there she was advised to serve Rowan with a DVO. However, she was scared this would aggravate him and escalate the behavior. A DVO is an order which prohibits people from committing family violence against one another, much like a protection order here in the United States. Unfortunately, Hannah continued to contact Rowan so that he could see the kids. He would consistently tell her to think of the children and of the alleged harm she was causing them due to her leaving the relationship. He also started to tell Hannah's parents that their daughter was mentally ill and that he had done nothing wrong whatsoever. This started off a constant back and forth where Rowan would claim that he would return the children, but then change his mind, sent Hannah into a frenzy trying to get her children back, and much like with this previous marriage, he would show up unannounced, let himself into his in-laws' home, and stalk and harass Hannah. On December 26, 2019, Rowan had the children for the day, and Hannah went to pick them up. Now instead of handing the kids over, Rowan threw Leanna in the front seat of his car and drove off. A witness saw this and flagged down a passing police car who then talked to Hannah. Unfortunately, as there were no family court orders in place, all the police could do was ask Rowan to return his daughter, but they couldn't take her from him. The police did try to contact Rowan and went to his house, but nobody was home. Later that evening, Rowan called Hannah on FaceTime and told her that unless she ended an affair that he claimed she was having, and he would not return Leanna. Hannah wasn't even having an affair. This was just another tactic Rowan was using to control her. Hannah contacted her lawyers, who drafted a letter to Rowan demanding the return of Leanna. The police decided that they were going to file a DVO on Hannah's behalf regardless of her intention to do so. On December 28th, the police protection order was filed. On December 29th, the police made contact with Rowan at his house as he was putting Leanna in the car. They advised him of the court order and told him he couldn't go within 100 meters of Hannah or the children until they could be heard in the court for permanent orders. The police then took Leanna into custody and returned her to Hannah. Rowan was to have no contact before January 4th, 2020, and they were all due in court. Later, the police conducted a welfare check and noted that Leanna appeared scared. After what was essentially a kidnapping, she always kept her mother within her sights. Hannah was recommended to take the children to child-aware psychology for services, but no records were ever found that the children had attended. In support of the police issuing a DVO, Hannah provided a statement about some of the things that had been going on behind closed doors. These included that she was forced to sleep with Rowan every night even though he would tell her she was disgusting, and that sleeping with her was, and I'm quoting him, like having sex with a bucket. In Hannah's own words, if I didn't have sex with him every night, he would make our lives hell. In the end, it became a chore I had to do to keep the peace and keep our kids safe from his temper. She also stated that he would hold her neck even though this made her uncomfortable, but wouldn't squeeze enough to cut off her oxygen. On one particular occasion when Hannah told Rowan no, he attempted to assault her, and Hannah had to fight him off physically. It was stated that Rowan had told her he had a plan to end the existence of his ex-wife, their son, and then himself. This made Hannah fearful that he would attempt to do the same to her and their children. Also, Hannah said that she was scared of Rowan as he behaved in a way that made her fear for her children. Rowan had posted videos to social media in the past of him playing too roughly with the kids, and in some cases being outright violent. In one video, he puts the kids in an ice bath. Little Trey was crying hysterically the whole time. Rowan also contacted the police around the same time, claiming that he was the one in fear of Hannah. He said Hannah had a key to the house and was able to let herself in. He worried that she would come in and take Leanna, who he had in his care at the time. He said that he was so scared he was driving around in the car with his daughter. Given the size difference between both of them and history of their relationship, one could assume he was trying to counter any claims that Hannah herself was trying to make. On December 29, 2019, Rowan attended his first counseling session as part of his mental health plan. According to the session notes, Rowan reported wanting help controlling his jealousy and that Hannah had left him for his controlling behavior. No formal risk assessment or risk screening for family violence was completed, and the session focused on dealing with overwhelming feelings by using techniques such as breathing. The psychologist also provided him with pamphlets on how to be supportive of each other and how to hold a relationship meeting to sort out problems logically. His mental health assessment indicated he was feeling moderately depressed and anxious, but answered no to all questions regarding harming himself or others. On December 30th, DV Connect attempted to contact Rowan twice by phone and text following a referral from the Queensland Police. They tried the next day, but were unable to establish contact. On the 31st, Rowan again attended his counseling session and disclosed that he had a protection order against him. He claimed that Hannah had made it all up and that he was upset that he wasn't able to see his children. Session notes state that they discussed the hardship of not seeing his kids, but again, no risk assessment was done. On January 1st, a child harm referral was raised within the police system to the Child Protection Investigation Unit. These are raised when there is potential for harm to come to a child resulting from a domestic incident attended to by the police. If an officer who has visited an incident is concerned about the welfare of a child, they will raise a referral to be investigated by the Specialized Child Protection Unit. Once this unit completes an investigation, they can also raise the matter to the DOCS, which is Australia's version of CPS. This referral, however, was closed by Detective Sergeant Derek Harris as a custody dispute, and no further investigation was necessary. He did, however, send a copy of the report to DOCS. On January 6th, Rowan again attended counseling and reported that their gym had been closed and that Hannah was oversharing their business, making people avoid him. He said he wanted 50-50 custody. Again, no risk assessment was done and strategies, such as starting new activities, were discussed to help Rowan. The matter went to court on January 8th, and Rowan contested the DVO. In the end, the DVO ruled in favor of Hannah and stated that Rowan could not commit acts of family violence, expose the children to family violence, go within 100 meters of Hannah's residence, or contact Hannah unless it was regarding the children. On January 17th, Rowan sought out advice from the men's legal service. He told them he believed that Hannah was planning to run off with the children and that he would never see them again. At the same time, Rowan increased his stalking. He would be at the same coffee shop as her, the same shopping centers. He would follow Hannah around, and he kept appearing wherever she went. Hannah was worried that he had planted another tracking device on her. January 21st, Rowan attended another counseling session. He claimed that he was being accused of being mentally unstable in order to restrict his access to the children. His psychologist, Vivian Jarrett, wrote Rowan a letter that stated the following, and I quote, "Mr. Baxter has been stressed over his wife leaving him suddenly, but has been coping remarkably well considering. He has been very open and sincere in our sessions. I have no concerns regarding his mental health. Contact with his children would be ideal, and after reviewing his parenting strategies, all seems in order for him to regain contact." It appeared this letter was written solely on what Rowan was saying. No official risk assessment or screening was ever done by the psychologist in relation to family violence or risk to children in order to write this letter of support. A letter that would turn out to be so completely wrong. Rowan presented the biggest risk of all to Hannah and his children. Rowan, however, continued to fight the DVO. His lawyer sent a letter to the court claiming that Hannah had only filed the DVO in order to get Leanna back and retain custody of the children. On January 23rd, the court declared that Hannah was to retain custody of the children, and Rowan would get alternating weekends with them. Every other week, they would spend Thursday to Friday with Rowan. They would have shared holidays, weekly FaceTime calls, and changeover was to occur at Hannah's parents' home. Unfortunately, all of this was taking its toll on the kids, and they repeatedly stated that they did not want to see Rowan, especially Aaliyah. On one overnight visit, Aaliyah called Hannah crying. She said they were driving, and she didn't know where they were going. On January 31st, 2019, Rowan returned Trey later than the agreed custody time. While Hannah was getting Trey out of the car, she noticed that Rowan had explicit photos of her laying out in the open. Hannah grabbed the photos and went to walk inside, but Rowan got out of the car and grabbed her wrist, turning it up behind her, and his mother called the police. However, Rowan denied the assault and went to file a DVO against Hannah instead. Hannah, however, had seen a doctor who advised her wrist had been sprained and put it in a splint. Hannah reported the breach of the DVO to the police. When the police tried to talk to Rowan, he refused to speak without legal counsel. Around the same time, Rowan lost his job as a personal trainer at a local gym. Hannah's lawyers also advised Rowan's lawyers that due to this incident, Hannah would not be following the parenting plan, and Rowan would not be seeing children any longer. Rowan was starting to unravel. He viewed everything as Hannah's fault in an attack on himself. He lacked insight into his behavior. His friends started to worry that he would make good on his threats to exit this world by his own means. The breach of the DVO finally caught up to him, but the police decided that rather than to take him into custody, they would issue him a notice to appear. He was also given notice for common assault for hurting Hannah's wrist. On February 7th, Rowan called Hannah's brother's ex-wife and stated he was so angry he wanted to kick her in the head. He wanted to go over, kick the door down, and smash her head in. On February 17th, Rowan went to a local hardware store and purchased zip ties, a jerrycan for fuel, and denatured alcohol. The following day, Rowan filled the jerrycan with 4.6 liters of fuel. He purchased 3 Kinder Surprise eggs and some lollipops. At 3:28 p.m. the same day, he phoned Youth and Family Services and inquired about a men's support program. At 4 p.m., he then phoned the men's line to inquire about the same program. At 6:25 p.m., he called a friend in tears saying he couldn't see the kids due to the DVO breach and that everything Hannah is doing is working. That night, Rowan FaceTimed his children, but he didn't say anything. He just cried on the call. Hannah was worried for her own safety, even telling her mother that she needed to make a will because when Rowan killed her, he would go to prison and someone needed to care for the children. At one point, she told a friend at the gym she was worried Rowan would hurt the kids in order to hurt her. Sadly, she was right in both instances. On February 19, 2020, Hannah's mother Sue went to the gym and arrived home at 6:20 a.m. Hannah then went out and got coffee for herself and her mother and sat on her mother's bed drinking it while Sue got ready for work. The girls were playing in their bedroom, and Trey was watching a dinosaur show on the television. At 7:20 a.m., Sue kissed her daughter and grandchildren goodbye for what would turn out to be the final time. Hannah loaded up the kids in her car to drop Aaliyah and Liana off at school. Trey was in his car seat in the middle, Aaliyah was behind the driver's seat, and Liana was behind the passenger seat. As Hannah started the car, Rowan jumped into the passenger side, holding a jerrycan full of fuel, and told her to start driving. Hannah screamed at him to get out of the car. She drove but pulled up beside a man named Michael Zemek, who was in his driveway washing his car. She screamed to him, called the police, "He's going to kill me, he's poured petrol on me." Michael looked over and saw Rowan in the front seat, physically holding Hannah to prevent her from getting out of the car. She's trying to get free, and Michael noted that Rowan was calm and seemed to be in control of himself. Hannah managed to break free from Rowan and got out of the car, but by that time, Rowan had already set her ablaze. She was engulfed in flames. Michael told her to roll on the ground. He used his hose to douse the flames. He then extinguished the flames on Rowan, and after hearing Hannah scream something about the children, he raced into his house to call emergency services. Michael returned to the scene to assist, and was later admitted to hospital for burns to his face, eye, and arm which he obtained helping Hannah out of the car. While Michael was in the house, another bystander named Samantha Covey saw flames and drove towards them. Seeing Hannah on the side of the road, she picked up the hose and continued to put the fire out. Samantha sat with Hannah until emergency services arrived. She said that Hannah asked repeatedly about her children, asking if someone had gotten them out of the car and whether they were okay or not. Hannah told Samantha that she pulled the car up upon seeing Michael. Rowan dropped the lighter, setting her on fire. She said she had tried to stop him and again asked about her babies in the car. Another neighbor named Carrie Fernandez heard Hannah's cries to call police, and after seeing the scene, she also called emergency services. She was on the phone with dispatchers when the car exploded into flames. With the fire extinguisher in hand, Carrie raced to the car and attempted to put out the fire. The vehicle began to roll backwards, and as people called for her to watch out, Hannah stood up and screamed, "My kids." A man named Benjamin Young pulled up just as Hannah made her initial scream. He also saw the car explode. He stated, "At that point, it sounded like a bomb went off. It was so loud. I felt the shockwaves." The car was engulfed in flames. Almost instantly, the car exploded about 10 meters from where I was. Police would later learn that Rowan had put the jerrycan full of fuel right in front of Aaliyah, and it exploded right at her feet. While Rowan didn't have any fuel on him, each of the children did, as did Hannah. As the car rolled backwards, Benjamin noticed Rowan dive into the front passenger seat, grab something, and then jump back out again. Benjamin grabbed some wood from the back of his own car to try to stop the car from rolling backwards. As he ran towards the car, He heard other bystanders yelling, get them out, referring to the children. Benjamin saw little Trey in his car seat. Sadly, the intensity of the fire meant they couldn't get close enough to the vehicle to rescue any of the children. Reese Gorley, another stranger trying to save the family, noticed that when Rowan dove into the car, he had grabbed a knife. He yelled a warning to Carrie Fernandez, who was still trying to use the fire extinguisher on the car, to back away from the now armed Rowan. Rowan then made one final cowardly act. Kneeling on the ground, he put the tip of the knife towards his body and fell forward onto it. He then curled up into a fetal position and died shortly thereafter. The damage was already done. In one short, heartbreaking morning, Rowan had killed Aaliyah, Liana, and Trey, and left Hannah burned all over her entire body, fighting for her life. Hannah had third-degree burns to 97% of her body. She kept asking about her children. Were they okay? Did someone get them out of the car? Knowing how dire her situation was, they redirected her and said she needed to focus on herself for now. Hannah called her dad before she succumbed to unconsciousness. As he picked up the phone, he couldn't hear anyone on the other end. He assumed it was a pocket dial or one of the kids playing with the phone. He would soon learn that it was in fact Hannah. She was unable to speak. He said her last act of resistance was to reach out for her dad, but she couldn't talk to me. Hannah died at 4:50 p.m. later that day. She was the last in the family to die. Post his death, a chilling note was found on Rowan's phone. It read, "I'm finishing your game. I don't want to play it anymore. You can't F*** with someone's life like this and expect them to take it. I have told the kids that you love them. They will miss you, I'm sure." At autopsy, it was found that Hannah died from multi-organ failure due to the fire. Aaliyah, who was only 6 years old at the time of her death, died from the effects of the fire, including smoke inhalation. She had severe burns to 100% of her body. While she had toxic levels of carbon monoxide in her blood, it is believed that that was not the cause of her death. This means Aaliyah knew what was happening and was burned alive. Liana, who was 4 years old at the time of her death, died from the effects of the fire, including direct thermal effects, the effects of smoke inhalation, and other combustion effects. Little Trey, only 2 years old, also died from the effects of the fire, including direct thermal effects, and the effects of smoke inhalation and other combustion effects. Rowan, who died from a stab wound to the heart, had no alcohol or other substances in his system at the time of his death. He also was not suffering from any disease or injury to his brain. The aftermath of this horrific crime impacted the whole of Australia in many ways. Coercive control, defined by the Queensland Police as any adult to use violent or controlling behaviours towards their current or former intimate partner, family member, or unpaid carer with the intention to control or coerce them, was not well discussed within the community. Many people didn't realize it was a form of family violence, and as of May 26, 2025, it will be illegal in Queensland to use coercive control over someone. Before this tragic story, while family violence was well known, the misconception that it had to be only physical violence existed. Other forms of family violence exist, and can be just as deadly as physical violence. After the tragic events of February 19, 2020, Hannah's parents started a foundation called Small Steps for Hannah, whose mission, in their own words, is in their quest to honor Hannah, Aaliyah, Lena, and Trey, and ensure that no family should endure this pain again. The Clark family have started a movement for change, Small Steps for Hannah, but a halt to the incidences and severity of domestic and family violence in Australia. HALT stands for Hannah, Aaliyah, Lena, and Trey. At an inquest into whether more could have been done to prevent these tragic events, the magistrate found Rowan Baxter was not mentally ill. He was a further actions taken by police officers, service providers, friends, or family members could have stopped Baxter from ultimately executing his murderous plans. Baxter made numerous appointments for counseling and with doctors. All of these actions were designed to assist him to contest the DVO and get what he wanted from the family court process. He did not have any real wish to obtain counseling or address his problems. He manipulated doctors and psychologists. When Baxter concluded that he had totally lost control over Hannah, he killed her and her 3 children. Hannah, Aaliyah, Lena, and Trey were laid to rest on March 9, 2020. They were buried together in one coffin. Hannah's uncle said the following words. He said, "For many of us, it felt like we had been shrouded in a shroud of darkness. It is only when we embrace this darkness that we can see the brightness of the stars shine through." That is what Hannah, Aaliyah, Lena, and Trey are. lights shining through their generation. Hannah's family remember her by the words of one of her last posts made to Facebook before her death. It read, "I am a strong woman. I don't sit around feeling sorry for myself, nor will I ever let anyone mistreat me again. I don't respond to people trying to dictate to me or bring me down. I am a survivor and not a victim. I am in control of my life, and there is nothing I can't achieve. My girls will grow up to be strong women who understand their worth." Hannah's brother had these words for the family he had lost. He said that Hannah was an amazing sister who was also his best friend. He said of his sister, was one of the greatest moms to walk the earth. Brown hair and brown eyes after you were born. Dad heard Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison on the radio on the way home, and forever this would be his song for you. He described his nieces and nephew as beautiful children who reflected their mom. He said, "Aaliyah, you were everything a big sister should be. Brave, strong, and quite bossy. Liana, you were the rat bag, the little middle. There was so much of Hannah in you. You were beautiful, sweet, and caring with an amazing imagination. You were the sweetest kid and a beautiful mermaid. Trey, mother's little man, and her best surprise." He heartbreakingly finished with, "I am so sorry I couldn't protect you." Case 2. Columbia, the largest city and beating heart of South Carolina, USA, is steeped in a rich history. Established as the state capital in 1786, it evolved into a vital hub for commerce and transportation. Yet, during the American Civil War, Columbia endured devastating destruction before rising from the ashes as a modern metropolis. The prestigious University of South Carolina calls this city home, and it was here, in this very place, that the tragedy of a young student named Samantha unfolded. Samantha Josephson, a senior at the University of South Carolina, was on the cusp of graduation, her future brimming with promise. She had her sights set on pursuing a master's degree in law, dreaming of becoming a brilliant attorney. Born on August 13, 1997, in Princeton, New Jersey, Samantha grew up in an intellectual family where both parents were highly educated. She had an older sister, 2 years her senior, and the family lived in harmony, filled with joy. From a young age, Samantha was a lively, mischievous girl, often playing pranks that filled her home with laughter. Friends and family adored her for her cheerful demeanor, always radiating positivity. Academically, she excelled, becoming a source of pride for her teachers and loved ones. After graduating from Robbinsville High School, she was easily accepted into the University of South Carolina, where she majored in political science. Throughout her college years, Samantha was a vibrant student, excelling not only in her studies but also in extracurricular activities. She was a member of the Alpha Gamma Delta sorority, an organization that promotes leadership, academic excellence, and social responsibility among women. Beyond that, she participated in a student exchange program in Barcelona, seizing the chance to explore the world. During her travels, she witnessed injustices firsthand, fueling her determination to study law with the hope of defending justice. Samantha aspired to become a human rights lawyer like Amal Clooney, the renowned British attorney known for her work in human rights and international cases. In her sophomore year, Samantha met Greg, a student 1 year ahead of her, at a bar. They quickly grew close and started dating. When Greg graduated in 2018, he chose not to continue his studies and instead returned to his hometown of Mount Pleasant, 2 hours' drive from Columbia, to start working. Despite the distance, they maintained a tight-knit relationship through regular video calls and weekend meetups. In 2019, with just 2 months until her graduation, Samantha received exciting news. She had been accepted into Rutgers University's prestigious master's program in law with a partial scholarship. Less than 10 minutes later, she received another acceptance, this time from Drexel University, offering a full scholarship. After careful consideration, Samantha chose Drexel to ease the financial burden on her family. Her boyfriend, Greg, supported her decision and planned to find a job in Philadelphia so they could be closer. Everything seemed perfect. Samantha had love, a bright career, and a world of possibilities ahead. But no one could have predicted that, in one fateful night, it would all come crashing down. On March 28, 2019, Samantha and her friends headed to 5 Points, a lively area less than a mile from campus, to unwind. Known for its bustling bars and nightclubs, 5 Points was a popular spot for students. Samantha and her group gathered at the Bird Dog Bar. By around 2 a.m., exhausted from the night, Samantha decided to head home early. But little did anyone know, The moment she stepped out of that bar would be the last time she was seen alive. Samantha's phone went silent. No calls, no texts, no response. Her friends, boyfriend, and family began to panic. They scoured the area in search of her, but to no avail. By 1:30 p.m., they decided to report her missing to the police. Although Samantha had been missing for less than 24 hours, the police sprang into action immediately. They rushed to her apartment to interview her roommate, gathering details about her appearance, the clothes she was wearing when she disappeared, and swiftly released her photo to the media in hopes of receiving tips from the public. But no one could have imagined the horror Samantha had endured. The area where Samantha vanished was bustling with plenty of foot traffic. Surely someone must have noticed her movements. Indeed, at 4 p.m., the police received a critical lead. In the New Zion area of Clarendon County, southeast of Columbia, about 60 miles from the bar where Samantha was last seen, 2 hunters discovered the lifeless body of a young woman lying by the roadside, hidden among the brush. Police rushed to the scene and confirmed it was Samantha, the very person they had been desperately searching for. According to the preliminary forensic examination, her body bore countless small but shallow wounds inflicted by a sharp object. The injuries were concentrated primarily on her head, neck, arms, and back, with an estimated 120 stab wounds. The sheer number of wounds was so staggering that the coroner couldn't count them all, a testament to the killer's ferocity and utter lack of humanity. Even more horrifying, the coroner discovered that the murder weapon wasn't a typical knife, but something with a unique design, resembling 2 parallel blades. The wounds on Samantha's body were symmetrically distributed, leaving even the experts baffled about the exact nature of the weapon. The most shocking detail of all, Samantha's body was nearly drained of blood. Based on her body weight, she should have had roughly 4,000 milliliters of blood, but the coroner recovered only 20 milliliters. This meant almost all of her blood had been drained. The minuscule amount left wasn't even enough for further testing. The cause of death was determined to be acute blood loss, a process that likely took 10 to 20 minutes. During that time, Samantha must have endured unimaginable pain and despair. The mere thought of it is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. When Samantha's parents and boyfriend received the devastating news, they were utterly shattered. They couldn't fathom that a vibrant, radiant young woman like Samantha could meet such a tragic end. The University of South Carolina, where Samantha studied, was plunged into mourning. In the wake of the tragedy, fear gripped the entire student body. After all, what Samantha did on that fateful night was nothing out of the ordinary for a college student, hanging out with friends, ordering a ride through an app. These everyday actions meant that anyone could become a victim just like her. Panic spread through the student community. No one dared to visit bars or use ride-hailing apps so casually anymore. For the police, the pressure was immense. If they didn't catch the killer quickly, every student in the area would continue living in danger. Determined to crack the case, they mobilized a large task force to investigate. The police decided to start with the most critical lead, pinpointing the last time and place Samantha was seen alive. On the night of March 28th, Samantha's friends who had been drinking with her recounted the events. That evening, we were chatting and drinking at the bar. Samantha wasn't in the best mood, but she seemed fairly normal. Around 2 a.m. on the 29th, she said she wanted to head home to sleep and left before us. Samantha's boyfriend, Greg, also provided his statement. That day, my girlfriend and I were texting. Her parents were unwell, so she wasn't in high spirits. We messaged until 2:04 a.m., when she told me she had booked an Uber and the car was on its way. That was the last message I received from her. After that, she stopped responding. Greg explained that since they shared their locations with each other, he checked his phone and noticed something unusual about Samantha's route. The car should have been heading north to take her home, but instead, it was moving southeast. Sensing something was wrong, Greg called and texted her repeatedly but couldn't reach her. Even more bizarre, her location sharing suddenly turned off, an occurrence that had never happened before. At first, Greg didn't immediately alert the police, thinking Samantha might be tied up with something personal. But when morning came and he still couldn't contact her, he raced to Columbia to search for her. In fact, before reporting to the police, Greg had gone to Samantha's roommate to search together. He even managed to obtain surveillance footage, showing Samantha hailing a ride that night. After noticing something suspicious, he decided to alert the authorities. Based on this lead, the police quickly pinpointed a critical detail. Samantha had disappeared after booking an Uber. This meant the Uber driver could very well be a suspect. The police promptly contacted Uber and identified the driver who had accepted Samantha's ride, a man named Marcus. When questioned, Marcus admitted he had indeed accepted Samantha's booking, but claimed he never met her that night. He waited for a while, and when no one showed up, he canceled the ride. This raised the police's suspicions. Could Samantha have gotten into the wrong car? Following this lead, they reviewed footage from roadside surveillance cameras. At just past 2 a.m. on March 29th, Samantha was standing alone on a street corner, waiting for her ride. She was wearing an orange-red top, black jeans, and holding her phone. Though it was late, the area was still bustling with young people hanging out. No one appeared to be following or approaching her. Samantha stood calmly at the pickup spot, with nothing seeming out of the ordinary. A silver-gray car pulled up near Samantha, and she quickly approached it, assuming it was her ride, but the car sped off. It clearly wasn't the one she had booked. Samantha returned to her spot to continue waiting. About 30 seconds later, at 2:12 a.m., a black Chevrolet pulled up. This time, Samantha walked over and got into the car without hesitation. Moments later, the vehicle vanished into the night. As the police dug deeper into surrounding security footage, they uncovered a chilling detail. The black Chevrolet had been circling the area multiple times. Each time, it would stop at the street corner, where people were waiting for rides, linger for a few minutes, then drive off. This behavior resembled a predator hunting for prey. Those leaving the bars were the targets of this car. Earlier, the moment Samantha approached the wrong car had been clearly observed by the driver of the Chevrolet trailing behind. This suggested the crime was premeditated, meticulously planned in advance. The police immediately expanded their investigation to track down the Chevrolet. Unfortunately, the cameras didn't capture a clear view of the license plate or the driver's appearance. At this point, the police had only a sliver of information. The suspect drove a black Chevrolet and frequently appeared in the 5 Points area. With such limited leads, they had no choice but to intensify patrols and keep an eye on every black Chevrolet in the vicinity. Typically, when hunted so relentlessly, a suspect would go into hiding, but not this time. Less than a day later, the police apprehended the suspect. Rather than crediting the police's efficiency, it might be more accurate to say the suspect was overly confident and arrogant, completely disregarding the law. While patrolling 5 Points, officers spotted a black Chevrolet matching the one from the surveillance footage. Without hesitation, they pulled the car over for inspection. A man wearing a white hoodie, seated inside, was asked to step out. But the moment he exited the vehicle, he suddenly turned and fled. At the time, there was still a female passenger in the car. When questioned, she appeared utterly bewildered, unsure of what was happening. Meanwhile, several officers quickly gave chase to the suspect. In a matter of moments, they apprehended him. His decision to flee before even being questioned suggested he had something to hide. However, even after being caught, the suspect remained silent in the face of the police's questions. He only claimed to be struggling to breathe and demanded medical attention. When a doctor arrived to examine him, they concluded he was perfectly healthy. To identify the suspect, the police took his photograph and fingerprints. The results revealed he was Nathaniel Rowland, 24 years old. Meanwhile, another team of officers conducted a preliminary search of the car. They discovered a quantity of illegal substances, a rose gold iPhone, visible bloodstains on the back seat, and cleaning agents like bleach. It was highly likely that this car was the crime scene. Investigators swiftly arrived to collect evidence from the vehicle, as well as from Nathaniel's body and clothing. Realizing he couldn't conceal the blood in the car, Nathaniel concocted a far-fetched story. He claimed that on March 28th, he attended a family gathering, drank too much, and stayed overnight at a hotel. The next morning, when he returned to his car, he found it covered in blood. He then bought cleaning agents to scrub it down. Nathaniel insisted someone else had borrowed his car, and he had no idea what had happened. He spoke fluently, but when the police pressed him on who had borrowed the car and who attended the gathering, he clammed up, refusing to answer, citing privacy concerns. His statement was clearly a poorly staged act. The police continued their thorough search of the car and uncovered even more damning evidence. First, the back seat had the child safety lock engaged, preventing anyone in the rear from opening the doors from the inside. Second, there was a footprint on the window, as if someone had tried to kick the glass out, but failed. Third, inside the car, they found a shopping list that included items like duct tape, gloves, gasoline, and a phone, suggesting a plan to dispose of evidence. Additionally, the police discovered an eviction notice for a woman named Maria. On March 26th, Nathaniel had submitted a bail application on her behalf. After verification, the police confirmed that Maria was Nathaniel's current girlfriend. Meanwhile, despite the car having been cleaned, the police used luminol and discovered that the back seat was almost entirely saturated with blood. A seasoned investigator with 25 years of experience remarked that this was the most gruesome crime scene he had ever encountered. Particularly striking was the fact that the blood in Samantha's body had been almost completely drained, a detail that perfectly matched the volume of blood found in the car. DNA analysis confirmed that the bloodstains in the vehicle belonged to Samantha. Additionally, the shoe print on the rear window matched Samantha's shoes, and the rose gold iPhone found in the car was hers. The forensic team also examined Nathaniel's fingernails and discovered traces of Samantha's DNA. Notably, the location where Samantha's body was found was just under 2 miles from Nathaniel's home, a remote area he knew intimately. This likely explains why Nathaniel chose to dispose of the victim there. Based on this circumstantial evidence, the prosecution charged Nathaniel with first-degree murder and kidnapping. Samantha's family argued that Nathaniel's actions were so brutal and posed such an unpredictable threat to society that they urged the court to deny him bail. The judge agreed, rejecting his request for release. Nathaniel Rowland was born in 1994 in South Carolina. Little is known about his childhood, except that he was a rebellious child. During high school, he served as the captain of his school's basketball team and was well liked by his coach. As an adult, Nathaniel frequently drove around the 5 Points area, often seeking to meet unfamiliar women. Without a stable job, he lived a reckless lifestyle and was regularly involved in illegal activities. In October 2018, 2 men in Colombia abducted a woman and robbed her home. Hours after the incident, police found Nathaniel in possession of the stolen items, indicating his direct or indirect involvement in the kidnapping. That case was still under investigation when, shockingly, Samantha's murder occurred. This pattern revealed Nathaniel to be a dangerous repeat offender. Yet, despite the mounting accusations from the police, Nathaniel steadfastly denied the charges, insisting he was innocent and had been wrongfully arrested. With no confession, the prosecution had no choice but to meticulously piece together all the circumstantial evidence to construct a complete picture of the crime. On July 20th, 2021, Nathaniel's trial officially began. The prosecution called a total of 31 witnesses, with the most pivotal testimony coming from Nathaniel's girlfriend, Maria. In fact, when the police approached her, Maria expressed a willingness to cooperate fully, determined to share everything she knew without holding back. Maria revealed that she and Nathaniel had known each other for a long time, but had only recently started dating. Nathaniel owned a black Chevrolet and often lingered around the 5 Points area. On the evening of March 28th, Nathaniel didn't come home. Maria texted him to ask where he was, but he didn't respond. It wasn't until around 7 a.m. on the 29th that she spotted his car parked nearby. In a rush to get to work, Maria didn't have time to confront him. She simply got into the car and asked him to drive her to her job. On the way, Maria noticed the back seat was covered in bloodstains. When she asked Nathaniel what had happened, he snapped at her, telling her to mind her own business. She also spotted a rose gold iPhone in the car, clearly belonging to a woman. When she questioned him about the phone's origins, Nathaniel claimed he had found it and planned to wipe its data before giving it to her. However, Maria, not being a fan of iPhones, declined the offer. Later that afternoon, when she returned from work, Maria noticed that the clothes Nathaniel had changed out of were also stained with blood. He had brought a large quantity of cleaning agents and bleach, meticulously scrubbing the car. Alarmed by her boyfriend's strange behavior, Maria pressed him for answers, but Nathaniel grew furious and pushed her away. Still, she managed to catch a glimpse of a double-bladed knife covered in blood inside the car. Later, when she saw news reports about Samantha's case, Maria was horrified but too afraid to contact the police. She lived in fear until the authorities reached out to her, at which point she felt a sense of relief and was ready to reveal everything. Based on Maria's testimony, the police searched the area around her home and discovered a double-bladed knife in a nearby trash bin. Forensic analysis confirmed that the knife's unique structure perfectly matched the wounds on the victim's body. Traces of blood on the blade were also identified as Samantha's, solidifying its role as the murder weapon. In the same trash bin, the police found blood-soaked clothing belonging to Nathaniel along with bed sheets, towels, and gloves, all drenched in Samantha's blood. These findings became critical evidence in the case against Nathaniel. Additionally, the police gathered further supporting evidence. Phone location data revealed that in the early hours of March 29th, both Nathaniel's and Samantha's phone signals left Columbia together, traveling along Highway 378 before stopping in New Zion, the location where Samantha's body was found. At 5:43 a.m. on March 29th, someone attempted to withdraw money from Samantha's Wells Fargo bank account 9 times. Surveillance footage from the ATM captured a man, his face concealed, trying to complete the transaction. He repeatedly entered incorrect PINs before giving up and leaving the scene. A witness also observed this incident. Based on the timing, it was determined that Samantha had already been killed by this point. Although the man's face wasn't clearly visible, his build and height strongly indicated that it was Nathaniel. Around 11 a.m. on March 29th, Nathaniel visited a second-hand store and attempted to sell Samantha's iPhone. When the employee unlocked the phone, they noticed the lock screen displayed a photo of a woman. When asked about the phone's origins, Nathaniel gave a vague, hesitant response, unable to provide a reasonable explanation. As a result, the employee refused to buy the phone, leaving it in Nathaniel's possession. With the evidence collected, it was almost certain that Nathaniel was the perpetrator. However, the trial did not proceed as smoothly as anticipated. Nathaniel's defense attorney argued that no DNA from Nathaniel was found under Samantha's fingernails, suggesting he couldn't be the killer. Theoretically, if Samantha had been attacked, she would have fought back fiercely, leaving traces of her assailant's DNA under her nails. The absence of such evidence, the defense claimed, proved Nathaniel's innocence. In response, the prosecution countered that if the attack was sudden and overwhelmingly violent, Samantha may not have had the chance to resist. Alternatively, she might have fought back, but only made contact with the assailant's clothing, leaving no DNA behind. Furthermore, an examination revealed that Samantha's nails had been trimmed within 1 to 2 days after her murder, a possible attempt by Nathaniel to erase evidence and cover his tracks. When this argument failed to gain traction, the defense called additional witnesses to support their client. Nathaniel's cousin testified that on the night of March 28, 2019, Nathaniel had been drinking heavily and slept through the night, leaving no opportunity to go out. Nathaniel's father also claimed that on the morning of March 29th, Nathaniel discovered his car keys were missing, only to later find them in a parking lot. When he opened the car door, he found it filled with bloodstains. The father suggested that someone else might have used Nathaniel's car to commit the crime, asserting his son's innocence. Nathaniel's family, friends, and high school basketball coach all tried to portray him as a good person, mischievous perhaps, but incapable of committing such a barbaric crime. However, these defenses couldn't sway the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution. On July 27, 2021, after just over an hour of deliberation, the jury unanimously found Nathaniel guilty of murder and kidnapping charges. In a final statement, Nathaniel's mother pleaded for leniency, insisting her son was a compassionate person incapable of such a crime. But the judge deemed Nathaniel's actions too cruel and abhorrent. He described the case as one of the most severe and savage murders he had ever encountered in his courtroom. As a result, no leniency was granted. Nathaniel was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Notably, throughout the trial, and even as the verdict was delivered, Nathaniel maintained a cold, unrepentant demeanor, a chilling display that sent shivers down the spines of those present. Although the perpetrator received a fitting sentence, Samantha's death left an indelible scar on her family. Her parents often broke down in tears, tormented by the thought of the over 100 wounds inflicted on their daughter's body. Reflecting on their daughter's passing, Samantha's parents identified a critical factor that contributed to this tragedy: ride-hailing apps. Had their daughter not entered the wrong car, the killer would never have had the opportunity to strike. Determined to prevent similar tragedies, they launched a campaign to raise awareness about safety when using ride-hailing services. They also established the What's My Name Foundation, which focuses on educating the public about ride-hailing safety, supporting charitable organizations, and providing college scholarships to select high school students. Samantha's parents collaborated with lawmakers to advocate for legislative reforms to enhance passenger safety and ride-hailing services. Thanks to their tireless efforts, in June 2019, South Carolina passed a ride-hailing safety law, named after Samantha, known as the Sammy Law. Under this law, ride-hailing vehicles are required to display clear signage on the front and rear of the car. Additionally, the rear side windows must feature information boards showing the driver's name, photo, and license plate number, making it easier for passengers to verify their ride. The law also imposes strict penalties on those impersonating ride-hailing drivers, with fines up to $500 and a maximum jail term of 30 days. Those who exploit ride-hailing services to commit crimes face fines of up to $1,000 and a maximum prison sentence of 2 years. Passengers are also encouraged to exercise caution before entering a vehicle. They are advised to ask the driver, "What's my name?" as only the legitimate driver would know the passenger's booking details. The What's My Name Foundation uses Samantha's nickname, Sammy, to remind people that this final verification step before getting into a car is crucial. Subsequently, the Sammy Law was recognized by the state of New Jersey and gradually refined. By July 2020, the law passed the U.S. House of Representatives with unanimous support. Despite the challenges and obstacles in the legislative process, the Sammy Law officially became federal law in 2023. Samantha's case is a horrific crime, showcasing the brutality and callousness of the perpetrator. While justice was served with Nathaniel's sentencing, the pain inflicted on the victim's family remains irreparable. The passage of the Sammy Law marks a significant step forward in protecting passengers using ride-hailing services. But it also serves as a bitter reminder that such protective measures often come at the cost of irreplaceable loss. Case 3. Around 7 a.m. on January 13, 1995, at the University of Tennessee campus in Knoxville, a city in eastern Tennessee, USA, a janitor named Alan began his routine task of collecting trash across various areas of the school. The campus is quite expansive, so each worker is assigned a specific area to clean. That day, Alan was tasked with tidying up Tyson Park, a small wooded area near the university, home to an abandoned steam plant that had been deserted for years. When he learned of his assigned area, Alan felt a stroke of luck. The spot he was asked to clean was remote, with little foot traffic, meaning he wouldn't have to exert much effort. Whistling as he strolled leisurely, the man ventured deeper into the woods, unaware that in mere moments, he would witness a horrifying scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. As he passed by the abandoned steam plant, Alan suddenly noticed streaks of red staining the ground. They formed a faint trail, leading straight into the nearby underbrush. A sense of unease welled up inside him, but curiosity urged him forward. Taking a deep breath, he slowly parted the grass to get a better look, and in that instant, his heart felt as though it might leap out of his chest. Before him lay a body that was no longer intact. At first, Alan thought it might be the remains of an animal torn apart by a predator. But upon closer inspection, he shuddered as he realized it was human. The victim was shirtless, her skin covered in countless deep cuts, as if sliced meticulously with a razor blade or a utility knife. At the center of her chest, a 5-pointed star had been carved deep into her flesh. The blood had dried, forming dark clotted patches that made the wounds appear even more grotesque. But what horrified Alan the most was the victim's head. It had been so brutally battered that it was nearly unrecognizable. In that moment, his entire body froze, his legs trembling as if they might give way beneath him. Overwhelmed with panic, he bolted out of the woods, his shaking hands fumbling to dial the police. Less than an hour later, the Knoxville City Police, along with the university's security team, arrived at the scene. Even for seasoned investigators who had witnessed countless murders, the sight of this victim left them stunned. A preliminary examination revealed that the victim had been attacked with extreme savagery. The cuts on her body were likely inflicted by a sharp object, such as a razor or utility knife. Her head had been repeatedly struck with a large rock, leaving it completely disfigured. No one could fathom the excruciating pain the young woman must have endured before her death. The police quickly cordoned off the crime scene and transported the victim to the forensic center for further examination. The crushed state of her head made on-site identification impossible. All they could determine was that the victim was a young woman. Given that the crime occurred so close to the university campus, authorities feared the news would spark panic among students, so they swiftly contained the area and controlled the flow of information. The university administration was equally concerned. With the killer still at large, could someone else become the next victim? If the perpetrator was a student, or if their target was students, the consequences could be catastrophic. For this reason, solving the case quickly became the top priority. The first task for the police was to identify the victim. Since the university campus typically saw little outside traffic, it was highly likely that the victim was a student enrolled there. To confirm this, the police reached out to faculty and staff, inquiring whether any students had recently gone missing. During the investigation, a staff member responsible for managing the dormitory entry and exit logs provided a crucial lead. According to this individual, among the students in the school's vocational training program, there was a 19-year-old girl named Colleen Slemmer. She had left the dorm the previous evening and had not returned since. Colleen Slemmer was born on September 20th, 1975. She lived with her mother, stepfather, and younger sister in Orange Park, Florida. In September 1994, unable to afford college tuition, Colleen decided to join a vocational training program offered by the U.S. Department of Labor. This program supported young people aged 16 to 24, providing free education and job training, with some facilities even offering housing. Through this opportunity, Colleen was able to study computer science, a field she was deeply passionate about. Notably, the vocational training program in Knoxville, where Colleen was enrolled, shut down just a few months after the murder took place. Upon receiving this information about Colleen, the police immediately checked the entry and exit logs for the evening of January 12th. The results revealed a striking anomaly. According to the records, Colleen had left the dorm with 3 other individuals, Krista, Tatterall, and Shadala. The 4 of them departed together at 8 p.m. By 10:15 p.m., the other 3 had returned, but Colleen had not. Where could a young woman like Colleen have gone at that hour? The more the police thought about it, the more they sensed something was terribly wrong. They decided to summon the 3 individuals who had been with Colleen that evening for questioning. However, before they could track them down, another significant lead emerged. A university security guard brought the police a leather jacket, explaining that it belonged to Krista, one of the 3 people who had been with Colleen the previous night. Krista had left the jacket behind, and, concerned it might be related to the case, the guard promptly turned it over to the authorities. When the police searched the jacket's pockets, what they found inside left them stunned. Wrapped in a tissue was a bone fragment, still stained with blood that hadn't fully dried. The forensic experts present immediately recognized something alarming. Based on their experience, they determined that the fragment closely resembled a piece of human skull tissue. However, they couldn't draw a definitive conclusion on the spot and needed to send the sample to the forensic center for a more precise analysis. Meanwhile, another female student from the vocational training program approached the police with a critical piece of information. That morning during class, Krista had suddenly pointed to the brown stains on her shoes and, with a smug grin, declared, "This isn't mud, it's blood." She then began to boast, describing in vivid detail how she had slit her rival's throat and used a rock to crush her skull. Hearing this, the police felt a chill run down their spines. They immediately recalled the young woman's body, savagely mutilated in the woods, and a horrifying question surfaced in their minds. Could it be that, after committing such a heinous act, this young woman felt no fear and instead took pride in flaunting her crime? With suspicion mounting, the investigative team began questioning the 3 individuals who had been with Colleen on the night of the murder. Krista and Shadala started to recount the details of what had happened, and piece by piece, the puzzle began to take shape. It all started when Krista decided to teach Colleen a lesson. Convinced that Colleen was trying to seduce her boyfriend, Tatterall, Krista had joined the vocational training program in 1994, where she met Tatterall, a 17-year-old teenager. The 2 quickly grew close, bonded by a shared and disturbing belief in Satanism. This religion was steeped in warped, sinister doctrines that rejected God, exalted cruelty over compassion, and involved rituals to summon demons, sometimes even performing human sacrifices. To most people, these practices were horrifying and deeply wrong, but for Krista and Tatterall, they were a thrilling obsession. Their shared darkness drew them together, and they soon became a couple. But their happiness didn't last long. When the holidays arrived, Krista had to return home, leaving Tatterall alone at the dorm. Unable to bear the loneliness, he began seeking a replacement, and his attention quickly turned to Colleen. Tatterall started approaching her, using every trick in the book to charm her. He believed that with his girlfriend away, no one would ever find out, but he was gravely mistaken. Women's intuition is often razor sharp. The moment Krista returned, she immediately sensed something off in the dynamic between Tatterall and Colleen. The chemistry between them was too obvious to conceal, no matter how hard they tried. Krista furiously confronted Tatterall, demanding to know if he had betrayed her. Naturally, he denied it vehemently. Colleen's friends also stepped in to defend her, insisting there was nothing between the two of them. But, despite all the denials, Krista trusted her instincts. She wasn't one to let things slide. From that moment on, Krista relentlessly tormented Colleen, using threatening words that left her living in constant fear. Colleen called her mother multiple times, desperately pleading to leave the vocational training program, but her mother refused. She insisted that Colleen finish her studies before even considering leaving. After a while, mere threats were no longer enough to satisfy Krista's rage. She wanted Colleen to pay a real price. So Krista turned to Shadola, a close friend in the vocational training group, and together they devised a plan for revenge. While plotting, Krista decided to involve her boyfriend, Tatterall, in the scheme. Since both were devout believers in Satanism, Krista exploited this to manipulate him. Playing the role of a mystic, she declared, "The universe has been out of balance without a sacrificial offering,